Today's knife review, the Helle Knives Didi Galgalu. It's a large, full tang bushcraft style knife. So stick around, we'll go through the dimensions and the specs and put it through a little bit of a workout. So the Didi Galgalu was named after the Didi Galgalu Desert in northern Kenya. Beyond that, as far as the history of why it was chosen, I'm not quite sure. As mentioned earlier, it's a full tang blade. The handle is made from African Kiaat wood, and the blade itself is a Scandi grind blade. Now the blade is made with Helle's Sandvik stainless steel. It's 3 millimeters thick, and the blade itself is 5 inches long. The handle is about 4.7 inches long, and it's got some, it's called Vulcan fiber liners here as well. So that basically concludes the specs on the knife. And now really quickly we'll get into the sheath. The sheath is genuine leather, and it's got Africa here embossed on it. It's got a belt loop here, and you can rotate the loop. But unlike the other Helle knives I've reviewed, I'm going to give some poor points here for the sheath. This knife has barely been used. It's not a knife that's been in my regular rotation that I've just been, beating the snot out over the course of the months. The retention of the sheath, you see that? It's very, very poor. Now you might expect that over time, but if you're not very, very careful with storing this knife away, you're going to lose it or potentially injure yourself. When I had it in my pack here, and as soon as I took the blade out to start doing the review, I sort of reached into the pack, I grabbed it. I ended up putting my fingers on the blade. I didn't cut myself, but as I went and grabbed the knife, it just came loose, and we had a little contact on skin here. So I'm going to give it, unfortunately, a failing grade, at least on my knife as it was sent to me from the factory. The sheath retention needs to be better on this blade for me to feel comfortable having it on my belt or in my pack and limit my risk of injury. The steel that Helle uses here is not very conducive with ferro rods. You can see here I'm getting some sparks, but when compared to the actual scraper, okay, that's a lot more. I'm not getting a whole lot off here. I've also brought a second ferro rod to try and work with. I'm getting nothing when I use the steel. You see I'm having an easier time here. So if you're looking for a bushcraft knife for firecrafting, this is not going to be for you. Feather sticks. It's going to do a very adequate job here. This wood's a bit wet. And most of the wood here is wet right now. But I mean, it digs into the wood well. If I had selected a drier piece of wood, I would have got some finer curls. That's it's a very ugly looking feather stick. But I mean, I've seen videos of people feather sticking with a butter knife, so I'm not sure that the fact that the blade is sharp is going to sway my decision making one way or the other. It does what most knives do when sharp. Now chopping, I just wanted to take down this sapling here. Okay, takes it down instantly for something that size. However, one thing I did notice is if I'm trying to chop something that's maybe 2 to 3 times larger than this, my hand wants to slip up the handle, and the choil is not enough to prevent the feeling of my hand wanting to go up the blade. This is maybe 2 to 2.5 inches, just really quickly, to try and get through something like this. What I'm feeling like is I need to have an extra firm grip on the blade to avoid having it slip or injure myself. and that's reducing the amount of hitting I can do with it because I've got such a firm grip on it. I don't really have that opportunity to be nice and loose and just get chopping in there. So, you know, for that reason or something this size, I'm going to say, you know, hold on to that knife or wear a really good pair of leather gloves. To make a nice, sharp tip with the Didi. That's going to do that, no problem. For batoning, a knife this size, naturally a lot of bushcrafters love batoning with their knives. You would think that this would be sufficient to do it. I'm sure the knife is more than capable. However, Helle has a very, very strong and firm stance on batoning, and that is don't do it. It'll void your warranty. And that's where, you know, my closing comments on this knife are going to get a little bit more negative. Again, Helle makes beautiful knives. I have the Mandra, the Wavakimi, the Tamagami, and I've got reviews on 2 of those. And they are fantastic, fantastic knives. The biggest issue I think that the Galgalu is encountering is it's got a little bit of an identity crisis. It's a bushcraft knife that Helle, you know, does not support batoning with, and let's face it, as much as it's probably more practical to use an axe, people do like to use their blades for batoning. To do so with this knife would be putting your warranty at risk. And the second thing is the fire crafting. Unless you're going to take the time to modify the blade yourself, you're going to have a very difficult time starting fires with this blade. Would I buy this over the Tamagami or the Wavakimi or the Mandra? No, I wouldn't. You know, again, the Tamagami knows what it is. It's a very, very fantastic, beautifully made 3/4 tang knife that does a variety of hunting, carving, you know, woodworking tasks. A blade this size that I'm not comfortable batoning with because of potentially ruining the warranty on knives that do cost quite a bit, and the fact that I can't firecraft with it. I just don't see a fit in my collection of blades, and that's why I haven't had this blade out for more expensive testing. So first impressions, you know, the best way to sum it up is identity crisis. I think they had intentions on really, you know, putting out this bushcraft knife that would compete with other knives in the market for this price point. I just think it fell a little bit short based on the steel that was chosen and based on their stance for batoning. So I personally would pass on this. Helle makes beautiful knives. They've got more options that will probably get you better bang for the buck, and this one just has a just hasn't quite figured out what it wants to be and what it wants to be compared to. So that's it. Helle Didi Galgalu. If you own this knife, if you disagree with my comments, I'd love to hear, you know, some supporting argument for the blade. If you don't and you've read this review or watched the review, I'd love to hear your comments and just let me know if you think I gave it a fair and partial review. Cheers.